Alright, I want to take a look at the upcoming opponents for Daniel Dubois and Anthony Yarde, two of Frank Warren's rising stars. They'll both be fighting on the 24th of February, which is obviously this month, on the York Hall show. Daniel Dubois will be partaking in his 7th professional fight, and Anthony Yarde will be partaking in his 15th professional fight. They're both unbeaten. Let's take a look at the guys that they'll be facing. Daniel Dubois is taking on a guy called DL Jones. Never heard of him before. As you can see here, he's 8-0-1. Let's see what we can discern from DL Jones's record. He is 6'5", orthodox, 36 years old, from the United Kingdom. 8-0-1, as you can see. Not a single KO on his record. That straight away is not a particularly good sign if you want to see Daniel Dubois tested in any way. And what's an even worse sign is you look at all these names here, you don't recognize any of them, other than maybe this guy Mazarek and Dorian Darch. Well, Paul Butlin we know, obviously he's a well-known. Matovu, actually, I do know him. He's a Ugandan journeyman. 5 wins, 44 losses, 4 draws. Paul Butlin we know well. The other guys I don't recognize. Dorian Darch, this is the most disturbing thing on DL Jones's record. In his last fight, he had a draw with Dorian Darch, and he was down in the 2nd round. He also had a point deducted for repeated fouling. Not a good sign. If Darch is putting you down, then what chance have you got of surviving against Daniel Dubois? So yeah, not really a good sign here, people. But as I say, Daniel Dubois is only having his 7th professional fight. He's only 20 years old. So I'm willing to, be a little lenient in terms of my critiques of Daniel Dubois at this stage, but he really is due a step up. At least somebody who will get him some rounds. I mean, you look at his fights so far, none of them have gone past the 2nd round. So we're going to need someone who is at least noted for their durability. Even if they don't have much ambition, somebody who's going to be durable, who's going to take him some rounds. This fight is scheduled for 10. I will be amazed if it goes anywhere close to 10 rounds, given the fact that Dorian Darch dropped him in his last fight and he had a draw, Mr. DL Jones. So yeah, that's the situation with Daniel Dubois. Let's move over to Anthony Yarde. He's taking on this guy, Tony Avalant, another person I've never heard of. So let's inspect his record and see what we can discern from it. He's French, 33 years old, orthodox, 6'2", only 5 KOs in 26 wins. So again, clearly not a guy who has any type of KO form. It definitely suggests that he's not a puncher. He's lost 9 fights, 2 by knockout, so he may be fairly durable, but who's he been losing to? And he's got 2 draws. Now here is the disturbing part. He was knocked out by Jürgen Bremer in 2 rounds 5 years ago. That's who Tony Avalant is. And the other knockout defeat that he suffered was way back in 2007 against this guy who was 2-2. So not very promising. And if you look at the names on Avalant's record, again, not many names you're going to recognize here. Jürgen Bremer, obviously, good-necked. We recognize him. He fought George Groves and unfortunately was seriously injured. He lost that fight to good-necked. Other than that, who do you reckon? Okay, we do have Rabras. He also lost to Rabras. I do recognize that name. But other than that, I don't know those names on his record. And well, you can see he's been losing to people I don't even know. Other than, as I say, Rabras and Bremer. Oh, my bad. Sej Lockhart beat him on a unanimous decision in 2008. So the guy that Anthony Yarde just beat this guy, beat his next opponent. So again, that's not a good sign. You know, I'm at risk here of being labeled an Anthony Yarde hater, which I'm certainly not, because I am making numerous videos these days critiquing the quality of Anthony Yarde's opposition and the way his career has been handled. Now, perhaps I'm being harsh because I understand that Anthony Yarde had very few amateur fights and he's had very few professional fights, and his trainer Tunde Ajayi says that if it was up to Anthony, he'd be fighting a much higher level of opposition. It's actually Tunde and Yarde's team who are holding him back for the moment, because they feel like he needs to progress at a particular pace, and they're picking his fights very, very carefully. But as a boxing fan, I rate Anthony Yarde's talent very highly. I think he's a precocious talent for somebody with such little amateur experience to display the kind of technique he has, the punching power, the poise, the movement, all that kind of stuff. He's very advanced for someone with such little experience, and I want to see him let off the leash because I want to see what he can really do against people who can actually fight back. And you know, Serge Locker was a little bit of a step up, but he's a guy who normally campaigns at light heavyweight, super middleweight, and Anthony Yarde is a ginormous light heavyweight. So, you know, I want to see Yarde in an actual fight, not necessarily a 50-50, but in there with somebody who's going to bring something to the table, a light heavyweight, you know. So does this guy fit the bill in your view? Tony Averlant, his last fight was a UD over 8 rounds against some guy who was 5'9" 2. As I say, not a puncher. He hasn't been stopped for a long time, that has to be said, since 2013, and that was off a body shot. But since then, who has he fought? He fought Dominic Bosel, who, well, I guess he must be of some type of caliber because of the fact that he's undefeated and whatnot. I have heard of Bosel actually. Well, he's got 1 defeat. Oh gosh, he lost to Karol Murat. That's not a good sign. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to be too harsh here. I do rate Anthony Yarde as a talent, but I'm frustrated by not seeing him in any real fights yet. So maybe we should just trust Tunde Ajayi's judgment that he knows what he's doing and that good things will come to those who wait, and they'll put Yarde in a real fight when it's appropriate. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you think Yarde needs to be stepped up, or do you think they're doing a good job with him at the moment? Obviously they know stuff about him that we don't know. His trainer and manager and whatnot, Tunde Ajayi, he knows stuff about Yarde we don't know. He knows his vulnerabilities. He knows the parts of his game which are not developed enough yet to put him in with certain fighters. I guess that's why they're holding him back, you know. And same situation with Daniel Dubois, although he's at a much earlier stage of his career, so we can be a bit more lenient on Dubois at the moment because, you know, he ain't 14-0 like Anthony Yarde is. He's only 6-0, so he's had less than half the fights. Anyway, let me know how you feel about this in the comment section below. Anthony Yarde's next opponent and Daniel Dubois' next opponent. I mean, what are we expecting from these fights here, people? A blowout, right? In both instances, we're expecting Daniel Dubois to make light work of this guy and Yarde to make light work of this guy. And I understand the process that fighters have to go through early on in their careers when you're building their confidence, when you're getting them used to the crowd, and you're also trying to iron out any mistakes. You're trying to iron out any technical flaws. But I see very few technical flaws in Dubois or Anthony Yarde against the level of opposition they've been facing. Technical flaws are going to be exposed once they move up a little bit in competition. And so you're going to need to move them up a little bit to find out what the flaws actually are. You know, or perhaps their trainers are seeing the flaws in sparring, and, you know, particularly with Yarde. And until those flaws disappear in sparring, maybe they're not going to advance him in terms of his professional fights. I don't know. Let me know what you feel. Let me know what you feel, people. It's happening. I'm out.